Back now to our exclusive report that the Conservative Mayor of London, Boris Johnson, has attacked the coalition government's plans to cap immigration. Under the policy, there's a limit on the number of non-EU immigrants able to enter the UK each year. The Home Secretary, Theresa May, has already introduced a temporary limit of 24,000, with the final number expected to be announced before the end of the year. But in a submission to the government seen by Channel 4 News, the Mayor warns the proposed cap will have a significant negative and disproportionate impact on London and would put the economic recovery at risk by creating skills gaps and placing London at a competitive disadvantage in the global competition for talent. In a covering letter to the Home Secretary, he said business groups were unanimous in their opposition and hostile to the proposal, and he urged her to have a major rethink of government policy. Well, we're joined now by Stuart Fraser from the Corporation of London and Neil O'Brien, the director of the think tank Policy Exchange. Stuart Fraser, is it possible to quantify what impact this cap would have on the Corporation of London?
No, I don't think it's possible to quantify, but I can tell you it could be very serious indeed. Clearly we're in a temporary phase, but we're going to move to a permanent cap system at some point. The city, and I mean by the financial services, East, West and Leeds and all the other places in England that rely on financial services, they tend to source globally. So they're global firms, and they will want to be able to bring the best talent in, not just from Europe, which they can do, obviously, but America, the Middle East, Asia, and if they want to build businesses here, they would normally bring people in. Also, I would say, I'm seeing people like Chinese sovereign wealth funds coming in, Indian banks and others, all of whom require to bring in some of their people from those countries. So we would really be shooting ourselves in the foot if we end up with a situation where, frankly, by the middle of the year, nobody can bring in anybody. This would be crazy.
Well, Neil O'Brien, it wasn't exactly the City of London that were in the sights of the politicians when they argued about immigration during the election campaign. There is a difficulty, isn't there?
Yeah, no, I think we would all agree that there are lots of good things about immigration, but it also does throw up lots of challenges in terms of jobs, in terms of public services, and in terms of our ability to integrate lots of new people into the country. Now, under the last government, I think there was a sort of feeling that things had got a bit out of hand. Migration had quadrupled. We were looking at 10 more million people in the country and effectively having to build 7 more cities the size of Birmingham in the course of 20 years. Now, that just seems like a bit too much, so you do need some kind of cap rather than an open-door policy. Obviously, you've got to get this right. We all want to get the good, high-skilled workers. We want the millionaire bankers to come to the city. But we do have 5 or 6 million people on out-of-work benefits in this country. But we don't have a shortage of unskilled labour.
That's very difficult to raise with Stuart Fraser's Chinese bank that wants to bring in some Chinese workers. There probably aren't many redundant Chinese-speaking British workers.
You've got to make sure that these things are all designed in the right way, such that the very high-skilled people can come here. But there's been a problem insofar as under the old definition of a skilled worker, you were talking about people working in a takeaway as being highly skilled workers. Now,
well, that's where a point system comes in, isn't it? I mean, Stuart Fraser, there is a point system, and obviously a lot of your workers that you're talking about would qualify.
Well, we've been making very strong representations to the government. There's a lot of abuse of the existing system. And you're absolutely right. We can get a chef coming in under this Tier 1 category who, frankly, is not going to add hugely to the economic well-being, but that could well displace, as you rightly say, highly skilled people. And the other point is this, that the international firms, I mean, let's face it, they've gone through a pretty tough time. They've still got a lot of regulation, a lot of tax changes and everything else, and now they can't bring in people. So these are the people that are mobile, and they will say as well, OK, if that's London's attitude or the UK's attitude, and let's face it, the real point is here, the big immigration has been the European Union. It's not been these other countries so much.
Well, Neil O'Brien, what's the solution?
Well, if you'd asked me a couple of weeks ago, I'd have said I was a bit worried that the government were focusing too much on just one aspect of migration, which is people coming here to work. Actually, the bulk of it is a lot of people have been coming in through applying to come to kind of slightly dodgy colleges and so on in the UK. And the government now, I think quite rightly, are now extending out the discussion to all those groups who it actually comprise the bulk of people coming here to migrate. And the system in the past has become a bit of a joke because the way it's been run has been very, very lax.
But caps, I mean, are they the answer? They do seem to be a very inflexible way of dealing with this.
I think unless you have some sort of cap or some sort of total control, then you can't make the idea of the kind of points-based system that we all like meaningful, because unless there's some kind of bottom line, then you're not really, that you do have an open-door policy, and that's not, I think, what people want.
But there are measures that already exist, which you have, for example, in the city, whereby if a company is employing somebody and wants to rotate them within the company, they don't have to deal with this problem.
No, that's right. But it is where you're building a new business. If you like, it will be a godsend to those with talent already in the city, because we would be cutting off the supply from elsewhere and their wages would rise. And I mean, there may well be opportunities for taking a team of investment bankers or whoever it is from America. You will need to bring them in now. They're not going to wait until there's a number of permits ready. And the firms won't. And so what the firms will do, they will relocate them somewhere else that they can put them in quickly, get them behind their desk, and making a lot of money for the firms and the taxman.
Stuart Fraser, Neil O'Brien, thank you both very much.